Podcasting is more than just talking, it's listening. BSing with Bob Schmidt.
Business talk show host, entrepreneur, and author of the book Small Business Hacks, 100 Shortcuts to Success. Barry Moltz joining me on the BSing with Bob podcast. Barry, thanks for being on with me. So as a talk show host, is it difficult to be in the passenger seat rather than driver's seat when it comes to podcasts and et cetera?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think it's fun actually to be in both seats. I kind of like being in the passenger seat because you have less control. You're not quite sure what's going to come, and so that makes it exciting.
I prefer to be in the driver's seat when it comes to interviews, though, that's for sure. How did you come up with the title of this book, Small Business Hacks?
Well, I think that everybody is looking for shortcuts for success. Everyone's looking for workarounds, and I think that we all know in business there really are no workarounds. However, there is a place to start. And there's a lot of things that small business owners, when they get into business, Bob, they just really want to solve a problem for a customer. But then all these other things start to come into play like, oh, how do I negotiate a lease? Or how do I go to an unemployment hearing with one of my employees? And what happens if someone sues me? Or how do I set up a salary structure for people? Most of us were never trained at that.
Right. And so was it hard to come up with only 100? Because everything that you mentioned is probably running through half my listeners' mind, and
right.
the other ones are probably in there as well,
Well, we had to narrow it down to 100, and we split about 50 or 60 where we felt we were experts on it, and then we reached out to another 40 people that we thought were experts in those areas. And it's not an exhaustive list, and certainly is not exhaustive advice on what to do, but you can spend a lot of time going on the internet looking for advice. At least in this book, you're getting advice from people that have been in small business together for over 50 years.
All right, Barry, what makes you an expert then?
Well, I've had 3 of my own businesses, and the first business went out of business. The second business, I was kicked out of my business, and the third one I sold. And then when I paid back the bank the $1.5 million I owed them, my wife told me I got her back the same time. So I've been through all the things that small business owners have done. I've experienced myself. I've been through success and failures, and hopefully you can learn from me.
I'm glad that you started off with a failure, because I think that a lot of business people, at least younger business people, think that failure is like the stop. It's the end of everything. But every single person, Barry, that I've ever talked with, especially about business, said that failure is just part of the game.
Yeah. No, listen, failure is just a stop, right? And I don't necessarily see, Bob, failure as being good or bad. It just is. I think that when you fail, you learn whatever you can. You cheer the darkness, you have a pity party, right? And then you move on, you let go. I think too many people get stuck in that failure and they have a really hard time moving on to whatever's next.
So as I was paging through the book and looking at some of the 100 hacks that you've got listed in here, I came across a few that basically I hadn't even thought of before, is how to spy on your competitors. I didn't realize that was even a thing.
Well, there's so many things that you can do now because everything is tracked on the internet. So one of the simplest things you can do to spy on people is, put a Google alert out there that just has your competitors' name in it, so when they appear on the web, you get notified on it. That's one of the simplest things you can do. You can also look at, what kind of advertising do they use, and what kind of visitors do they get, what type of things they do on social media. All that data is available if we just go out there and look at the tools, and you can learn so much about what they're doing and either how you can do the same thing or compete or do something totally opposite.
Well, how do you find out, or how do you read the analytics then when you look at this is what Google says that they're doing? How do I turn what they're doing into a positive for what I can do for my business?
Well, I think you have to learn from what they're doing. Where are they getting perhaps backlinks from? Who's linking to their website? And can you do the same thing, right? How are people finding them? What kind of keywords are they being successful in getting people to come to their site? And maybe you can compete for those keywords. So I think there's a lot to learn. It's hard to be able to compete in this marketplace when you don't know what other people are doing.
So a lot of it boils down to doing research and having to do that on a daily basis then?
I don't know about on a daily basis. I think it's something you should look at monthly or quarterly, but just don't guess. With the internet, everything is traceable and trackable. Don't use your gut anymore alone. go see what the metrics say.
Let's kind of turn our attention then to something that, that we can prove metrics on as domain names. I own, bobschmidt.com, podcastforhire.com, lacrossewisconsin.com, blah, 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 on and on and on. And a couple of those are ones that I wanted early on in the process, and I had to wait to get them. Is there a faster way to maybe get pushed toward the top to purchase a domain name like bobschmidt.com or Lacrosse, Wisconsin, or Barry Moltz, or whatever.com?
Well, listen, I actually purchased BarryMoltz.com, no problem, but for Moltz.com, MOLTZ.com, since it's only 5 letters, I had to pay $200 for that. That's somebody else. So, yeah, listen, there's definitely a way to push towards the top if you're willing to offer some money. One of the things that we lay out in the book on the hacks is that people have to understand all the phases that a domain goes through if it's already taken. And there are ways to get involved or get to the front of the line at each one of those stages. And sometimes it means getting in line, and sometimes it means offering money to the person that's the owner right now.
Well, I noticed that a lot of times that if you go to a specific website, like you, for example, Moltz.com, when you were trying to find that domain, it probably said this domain is available for sale, and it had some ungodly number of $10,000 or whatever on there. Right. Is that stuff negotiable when you contact these people?
Listen, as I say, everything is negotiable, right? And I don't even know what the guy originally wanted for the website. I think he wanted $1,000 or $2,000. We ended up on $200. So I'm not sure what kind of market there is for Moltz.com. There might be a bigger market for BobSchmidt.com because there's probably a lot more Bob Schmidt.
Like I said, I'm just kind of wondering about this stuff because I know that people that are listening are like, well, gosh, I'd like to be the next owner of Coca-Cola or a brand name that everybody knows and loves.
Well, you just got to be careful though, because there's all sorts of rules about if Coca-Cola.com was really available. There's all sorts of rules about you may not be able to own it because Coca-Cola is a brand out there. But I tell people not really to get stuck on the domain name. I mean, so for example, one of my clients, Urban Oasis, it's a spa in Chicago. UrbanOasis.com was already taken, so he's got UrbanOasisMassage.com. Again, I wouldn't get so stuck on the perfect name. My belief is it should be a .com and it should be easy to spell. I think that's the most important thing.
Absolutely. I always find it difficult when you're trying to spell. Okay, now is Moltz MOLT
exactly
CZ or Z or what? And you mentioned the .com though. I mean, so you suggest rather than going .net or .org or .whatever these days, just go with the strict .com.
I think .biz is not bad. If you have like a .biz, or sometimes it plays into the domain name. So, for example, there's a screen sharing site called Join Me. And they're join.me. And so I think that really, that works. But I still think that .com is still the prevalent name. Again, most important, easy to spell. So, for example, when we came out with this new book called Small Business Hacks, we wanted to get smallbizhacks.com, but it was taken. They wouldn't negotiate. So we just got your smallbizhacks.com, right?
Right.
And so it was just easy. It's not, a book title is not something you're going to use for a very long period of time. And so for the next couple of years, we'll use that.
Well, just like somebody buying like mychicagoillinois.com or something like that, right. just to kind of get it out there. All right. So since we're talking internet, we're talking domains and stuff. What about setting up and getting an email that's going to be opened and read? I know that's hack number 57 in your book.
Yeah, I think what people don't realize, I mean, maybe they do realize, people get hundreds and hundreds of emails every day. And if you don't do a couple things correct. So a couple of the hacks are, first of all, whenever you're sending an email, it should have your name on it. So many times I get emails from sales@thisbusiness.com or info@thisbusiness.com, and that doesn't mean anything to me. It's got to be someone's name so it looks like it's more personal. The second thing is the title of the email is critical, is really the reason that people open it up. And in the book, we talk about a whole psychology that goes into making sure that people open up emails. So it's a very important part of the whole process. Just don't be lazy and put, whatever, next step, in the subject of the email. Right. It just doesn't work as well.
So what do you suggest people use as a subject that will get more opens than the next step subject?
So it depends on what you're doing. So, for example, let's say I'm trying to get a customer to respond to me or a prospect to respond to me that never, ever responds. you need to put the action you want them to take in the subject of the email, so they don't have to go any further. Or I use a subject that says, please reply A, B, or C. And in an email, I give them 3 actions they can take, and they can just easily reply A, B, or C to that whole thing. That's if I have a prospect that won't respond or a customer that doesn't respond. If you're doing some kind of content marketing or email newsletter marketing, you need to have something that is provocative or is connected to current events. And people, unfortunately, Bob, will open up negative email titles more than what they do positive email titles, right? So instead of saying, the 5 habits of successful small business owners, the better title is, here's 5 things that small business owners should never do. Because again, it plays into people's fear. Unfortunately, those get opened first.
Now that you say that, I look back at the emails that I open up on a regular basis, and they're all, like you said, here's what you shouldn't do as a talk show host, or some of the people that you don't want to talk with are A, B, and C.
Exactly, because it's out of fear, right? We don't want more than wanting to do the right thing. We don't want to do the wrong thing.
That kind of goes back to your whole childhood, I think.
Right, exactly.
So how is doing this and putting together this book, how is this different than running a business for you? I mean, or being a talk show host? How is the book writing? I know that you've done more books than just this one, but how is the book writing different than running the day-to-day on a business or doing your radio program?
Well, I think that, writing a book is a much more of a solitary adventure. You have to find quiet time every single day, every single week to really put it together. And I think it's a very different thing that goes, as you know, into putting together a radio show where someone's got to book the guest. You've got to figure out what you're going to talk to them about. You got to have the conversation, and then someone's got to follow up. Or if you're out in the business, usually you're talking to your customers. That's a lot more interactive. I think this is a much more, at least when you're writing it, Bob, a more solitary endeavor.
What about getting the word out for it? I know that I don't even honestly. I think I saw somebody review your book on LinkedIn, and I'm like, oh, that sounds like something that I'd be interested in talking to. Is it hard to go about marketing your business, your book, your show, your blah blah? Insert name here.
Yeah, I think it is hard. I think what most people think, and this is the 6th book that I've written, is that just because you write it, then people are going to read it or they're going to buy it, whatever it is. You need to have a whole plan onto getting the word out. So one thing that I did differently this time is I used a tool called Thunderclap. And what Thunderclap allows you to do is it gets people to commit a social media post about a certain subject, like your book, on a certain date and a certain time, either on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter. And so you send out this whole campaign, try to get everyone to contribute one social media post. And we were so successful, we had 1.3 million tweets and posts and things like that go out in the day that the book was released.
What?
And so that's the way to it's almost like crowdsourcing your social media following.
What is that called? Thunderclap?
It's called Thunderclap, right. It's called Thunderclap. And there's everything from free to fee. But, you also want to get people to review your book on Amazon. And that just doesn't happen automatically, right? You have to send out all sorts of reviews, copies, and say, listen, we like your review. Here's the book. I like your review on Amazon. Do it positively or negatively. I want you to be honest about it, but here's the book. And then also, after you do that, Bob, you actually have to follow up to make sure that they post a review, right? So these are all these moving pieces that you have to be very proactive in order to really actually get it done and get it to the top of Amazon's list.
Well, it's like holding hands. It's like being it's like being a parent. Hey, no, Johnny, are you sure you did it? Are you positive?
Right, exactly. Well, listen, people are busy. You're asking people for a favor, right? And and you can expect that. So again, just because you write a book doesn't mean people are going to read it, doesn't mean people are going to buy it. And you spent all that time, you might as well get the word out about it.
Oh, absolutely. All right, there's a couple other ones on here that in your hacks that I liked. How to get your product into a big box retailer. What I sell is me, so I'm not going to do that. But people listening might have the next gadget that's going to make $1 million. How do they get that in front of Mr. Walmart or Mr. Target?
I think that a couple things. It is easier today than it used to be. I mean, it used to be that you had to go down to Arkansas and find the buyer for your category and pitch it. And then they never really wanted to just have one of your products. They want a whole family of products because they didn't want to take up the space. And then, of course, their terms were really arduous. We're going to pay you on sell-through. It's a little bit easier today because you have a lot of sites like Amazon and Walmart and Alibaba where they really do want your product on their website. They don't necessarily want it in their stores, but they want it on their website, and they'll even do fulfillment for you. So there's a lot of ways that you can actually get your product on these sites and get in front of these customers that already have some kind of marketplace.
Have you done any of that?
I have. For all disclosure, I've been working closely with Amazon to try to get more small business owners to fulfill their products on the Amazon site. And the people that I've interviewed have had incredible results.
What's the difference between somebody that has incredible results while trying to fulfill something on Amazon compared to, I don't know, I've seen stories about people that go and buy stuff on clearance from box stores and try to sell it on Amazon. How is one monetizing it a lot better than another person?
I think, again, you have to have a strategy. You're just not dumping product, right? If I want to dump product, I might put it on eBay or something like that. This is where you integrate your marketing strategy into utilizing Amazon. So they've got a lot of different promotions you can use and on all sorts of ways that you can get the word out about your product, and it's a long-term strategy. This is not just selling stuff. This is about creating a relationship with your customer through Amazon. So I think there's a really, really big difference because, again, people don't want to just buy stuff. They don't want to buy commodities anymore. Everything's commodity. They want to have an experience, and they want to have a relationship with you. And I think that's one of the reasons why Amazon is successful, because of the way they develop their site. They do give you an experience, and they do develop a relationship with you. I mean, Bob, they call me by name when I log on. I go to the Gap store, my local Gap store. I've been there 12 times. They have no idea who I am. They don't know what I bought.
Right, but I
people kind of like that.
I guess I look at Amazon like going out to the mall, where I realize that they're all being sold by 150,000 vendors, but I go to the one place to find them all. When I buy, let's say I'm buying a microphone and I'm buying a cable and I'm buying a mixing board, I might be buying those all from different places, but I'm thinking about it as just buying them all from just one place.
Right.
The big store, Amazon.
I think that the experience can really be good online for the small business owner that's trying to sell their product, right? Because on Amazon, you obviously see all the reviews. People say time and time again that seeing reviews really influences what they buy. Plus, you can show videos, you can show customer testimonials, you can show all sorts of things, so you can simulate actually, and sometimes even better, Bob, about what the buying experience is going to be as if you actually went into the store. So I think there's some good advantages. Now, I think the small business owners need to be in multiple places, right? They should sell it on their own, and they should be in some of these marketplaces. It doesn't have to be exclusive.
When you do that, though, when you're using different avenues to sell your product, Barry, should you have a different price point for an Amazon, whereas you're selling it at a different price at your box store, or you're selling it at your mom and pop shop downtown?
I think you have to be transparent that the pricing has to be the same, because there isn't really there aren't really pricing barriers anymore, because people can just look up. I mean, you go into these big box stores, they always say, hey, we'll match what everyone's selling it online as long as it's a bona fide order. Now, if you're selling it through distributors, and they're buying in mass, you can give them a discount when they go sell to the retail customer. But I think it's pretty much got to be all the same, because a lot of customers are going to see right through that.
All right. What about mentors? Is having a mentor a good thing in the business world?
It's an interesting question you asked, Bob, and it's the first time I've been asked in being interviewed about the book about that particular hack. Small business owners, when they're surveyed and you ask them, what is the one thing that's really made a difference in your business life consistently, they say it's having a mentor. So I think it could be a huge difference. In fact, I wrote this book with one of my mentors, which is Riva Lasonsky, who used to be the editor over at Entrepreneur Magazine.
Interesting. I've been lucky because I've got a lot of people that I've talked to over the years, and a lot of those people, like yourself, just say, "Hey, give me a call. We'll talk, and we can make things work." And for me, that's awesome. And for you to be able to write a book with your mentor, that's pretty cool. Gold star for you.
Joey sets me straight when my thinking gets a little bit warped.
Let's talk a little bit about that, the warped thoughts, because I think that a lot of people that are business owners have many different thoughts that run through their head at every single moment of the day, from, hey, this is a successful campaign, to, what the hell did I do, and why is my business sucking right now?
Right.
Within minutes of each other, honestly, within minutes of each other having those same thoughts.
I think you're absolutely right. Listen, it truly is lonely at the top, and you need one or more people that can give you an independent perspective, whether you just do it on a friendship basis or you pay them. You need an outside perspective because it's so easy to get sucked into what's going on a daily basis, and it seems like it's you against the world.
Oh, Barry, you mentioned pay. I don't think I've ever heard of a paid mentor. What is that?
It's usually several $1,000 a month. That's the difference. No, I mean people are advisors. You can hire someone who's your advisor that can also be your mentor, right? That gives you business advice. I mean, I'm hired by a lot of folks to give them business advice, and I act as a mentor. And then there are some people where we just do it on an infrequent and friendly basis, and there isn't any money that changes hands. It all depends on really what you're looking for. I mean, if you want to talk to someone every single day or every single week, that might be a paid relationship where, hey, I'm just going to call up Reva when I've got a problem. Can she talk to me for 15 minutes? I think there's need for both.
Like I said, I never heard of that, so I'm kind of shocked at the fact. But I guess as an advisor, that's one thing. As a mentor, I don't think I'd be calling it a mentor.
I guess it all depends on what your definition is. I think that advisors help people grow as well, and I think mentors are also advisors. So I think whatever really works for the individual small business owner.
One of the steps that I'm having a hard time with in my small business is making the cold call. I know that there's a hack in here, but is there a quick tutorial you can give us on making the cold call?
Yeah, I think that it is easier than ever to not really make a cold call, make a warm call and get connected to the person that you want to know. I mean, this is really what LinkedIn was really built on, is that the 6 ideas of 6 degrees of separation, right? That someone you know is probably going to know someone that you want to get in touch with. So the idea, at least from a LinkedIn standpoint, is can you get connected through some kind of referral for someone you know? Also, most businesses, if you're selling B2B, have social media presences. It's another way really to get in touch with those folks. So, for example, I do a lot of business influence work with large corporations trying to get to small businesses. A lot of times those relationships start online where I start to talk to people, let's say, at Amazon that are trying to attract small business owners, and I may get involved with working with Amazon through actually their social media folks first. So there's a lot of ways to get to the people that you really want to be able to talk to, and you don't need to make a cold call.
Yeah, but what about getting to the gatekeeper? Because oftentimes you'll call or you'll hit them up on Facebook or whatever,
Yep.
and the right person isn't the person that answers you, and they're not going to give up. They're not going to give you Barry's telephone number because Barry's too busy to talk to you.
Listen, I think it takes time, and whoever the gatekeeper is, you have to show them how you're going to add value, right? It's just like before. So I don't think that's really changed, but at least you're not picking up the phone and saying, all right, let me call you. A lot of these types of things you can also automate. So, for example, I can really interact with a lot of content that's out there, and that really doesn't take as much time as trying to pick up a phone and call somebody. So I think the tools have changed to get the connections, make connections a lot easier.
The book is called Small Business Hacks, 100 Shortcuts to Success. Do you have a favorite shortcut?
We already mentioned my favorite shortcut, which is really how to get people to respond when they won't, because I'm continually surprised how someone who's told me they're going to do business with me and to call them next week or email next week never, ever gets back to me. So I wanted to come up with hacks to not necessarily get them to buy from me, but to complete that thought. Because, Bob, what happens is when someone says they're going to do business with you and then you never hear from them, you hold on to the idea that they're still going to do business with you, so it prevents you from seeking other folks that will actually buy your product. So you want some kind of completion in that. And so I was trying to figure out a way, how could I get them to finally respond to me with at least a no, so it would release me. That's my favorite hack. And I have to tell you, the 2 hacks that I've listed in the book there, I get between an 85 and 95% response rate of people saying, yeah, here's your answer. Now, they all don't do business with me, but at least I can move on.
Man, that's one of the things that I hate the most, like you said. Yeah, I'm interested in that. I'm just not going to call you back. I wonder if it's the shiny object syndrome.
I think people are afraid of conflict. They're afraid to tell other people no. or they're really unsure. But a lot of times if they're unsure, it really is no. So for example, a guy called me the other day. He was interested, his company was interested in sponsoring my podcast. After I got done with the phone call, he says, yeah, I'll call you next week. We'll get started. I knew he really didn't mean that, right? So now it's my challenge to see if I can get a no out of him. Right? That's how I set up as my challenge. Just give me the answer. The problem is a lot of small business owners don't want to hear no, Bob, because they want to hold on to the idea that maybe this person will do business with them. And maybe they will someday, just not now.
Now, do you find that it's different in different parts of the country? Because, I mean, you being in the Midwest, I'm living in Wisconsin, I'm from Minnesota. There's that quote, that Minnesota nice or that upper Midwest nice that you hear from a lot of people. And I'm assuming that you do business all over the country, especially out in Seattle, since you've got Amazon as a client. Are we seeing more regional no's or not saying no's than you do in the rest of the country?
I really don't see a difference by part of the country. I really don't. To me, it's all the same, and I can never really figure out which those people are going to be, Bob. It constantly takes me by surprise. In fact, I once did a rant of a blog called "This is Barry Moltz Returning Your Phone Call," because I just want people to email me or call me in the middle of the night to tell me they hate my guts. They never want to hear from me again, because I think that's better than not hearing anything.
I heard that from an ad agency guy the other day. I interviewed him about a book that he had done, and he said that same thing. He said that a lot of times people don't hear no, and that's why you keep getting the pitch. If you just say, Barry, no, I don't want to do anything on this one, maybe next time, then at least that kind of puts you to bed and puts you to rest, and you don't have to worry about it or think about it anymore.
In turn, Bob, I'm really good. As you know, people always pitch me, to get on the show or whatever it is. And I'm already really good. Even if I know them, say, no, thanks. Just really write up. And actually I have as a shortcut, in my computer. I just have to put NO and it says no thanks. And that's it. And people say, hey, I really appreciate you giving me a response.
But then do you open that email up, the one that was the response of the no?
After they get back to me again?
Yeah. So if you said, no, I'm not interested in being in your podcast,
right.
Do you get back to them after they say, thanks for getting back to me, or do you just let that go from there?
That's just silly, right?
Okay. Well, that's what I thought. Yeah, no kidding. Now,
you're welcome. You're welcome.
What's the biggest game changer in today's world of business, Barry?
I think one of the biggest game changers is really how technology can really provide an outstanding customer experience for the small business owner, that you don't have to invest a lot in many of these tools. You can make yourself seem like a large business, and you actually can have a great one-on-one relationship with your customer. I mean, it used to be that you had to invest all sorts of money, all sorts of infrastructure. Now with everything being in the cloud, it doesn't take a lot to have a real personal experience with customers, and that's what they want. They don't want to buy just a product. They want to have an experience with you. They want to have a relationship with you, and that's really easy if we would just utilize those tools.
Well, actually, getting that customer, the acquisition cost is pretty high these days, especially when you're dealing with people across the country, across the world. How do you get more money from that person? I know that's one of your hacks in here, hack number 93, how to make more money from an existing customer. Is it possible for every line of work, every line of business?
I think it is. You got to figure out how you can get deeper with them. Either they buy more stuff from you or for a longer period of time, or they refer additional people to you, so that contact becomes more valuable. But see, here's the problem. We spend so much time bringing customers in through the front door, we don't really feed the customers we already have, so they escape out the back door. And I think that's what you really have to look at, is what is the churn of your customers? What are you really doing to keep customers, to expand them, and them to give you referrals? We're so caught up in the hype, in the chase to get new customers, that we forget about the ones we have.
I think that a lot of businesses, even box stores, forget about that stuff these days, which is unfortunate. I want to turn a question on you. Hack number 61 says how to create a blog for your business, but I want to ask you the question: why is a blog important for a business?
Well, I think that is important because everybody wants to be seen as as an expert in their field. I always say that we actually can't sell anything to anybody. We have to be there when people are ready to buy. And the only way you can be there when people are ready to buy is to constantly send out marketing message every week to say, this is how I help people like you. Not necessarily selling them stuff, but just talk about things that they may be in pain over. So when they have that pain, they'll think of you. that is really why it's important to have a blog, to post that content on your site. It also helps with organic search. So when people are looking for certain terms, your website will come up. It'll actually help on the Google and Bing search ranking.
Isn't there too much though? I mean, I look at Facebook and people saying, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me. I look on LinkedIn, it's like, hey, look at me, look at me. Twitter, same thing. And pretty soon it's like, I'm going to just unfollow this person because all he's doing is, hey, look at me, look at me.
Well, it depends on what I don't believe that by saying that how I can help you, it says, hey, look at me. So, for example, yesterday I posted an article on, is private chat inside a company really private? You know, I had a situation with a customer where we're using this tool and a couple people got quit because they were doing derogatory things over the private chat in the company. And they said, well, we thought this was private between two colleagues. And I'm like, why would you think it's private? You're on company's application on a company computer on company time. So I just gave people advice that really things are not as private as you think. And so I post that. I don't think that says that, hey, look at me. I'm trying to give my perspective on something, on a problem that you might have. I think there's a big difference. Or I'll post something that says, this is how I think the Trump tax plan is going to affect small business owners and what you should watch out for these kinds of changes. Again, hopefully to be helpful rather than trying to sell them something.
Well, I guess in that way you're top of mind and top of mind awareness. The book is called Small Business Hacks, 100 Shortcuts to Success. Barry Moltz is my podcast guest. Barry, how do we find this book and the other books that you've written?
Well, you can go to www.smallbizhacks.com. If you want more information about the book, you can go to my website. I've written 5 other books, www.barrymoltz.com, BARRYMOLTZ.com, or you can go to Amazon or Barnes Nobles, or as they say, wherever books are sold.
What are the other 5 books you wrote?
The first book I wrote is called You Need to Be a Little Crazy, The Truth About Starting and Growing Your Own Business. It talks about what is it really like to start and run your own business. It was written in the early 2000s. And in response to this, the internet bubble where people thought you could start a business or you could have a great business just by writing something down on a napkin. The next book I wrote was called Bounce, which is really a response to the 2008 recession. How do you really bounce back and move forward? And then I wrote a book on customer service and customer experience, how that's really the new marketing. Then I wrote a book called Small Town Rules, and I won't talk about what that was about. And then I wrote a book about how to get your business unstuck, which is really my marching orders to people is how can I get them unstuck and move forward. And then this one.
How do we reach you, Barry?
You can go to my website, barrymoltz.com, or my email is just my first name at my last name, barry@moltz.com. Thanks so much for taking your time.
The BSing with Bob Schmidt podcast is brought to you by Orange Computer. Find them online at orangecomputerlax.com.
This has been another podcastforhire.com production.